Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to the second video of where I show my top 10 favourite female artists, and this time it's the solo artists. The last one was female artists in bands. So getting straight into it, at number 10 I have Haza ORourke. Now this is her Sons and Lovers album from 1981. There's one single off this called D-Days which was remixed as a single. The single version is better, but this is just really good, strong writing. Now she's more famous for her album Breaking Glass, which was the soundtrack to the film of the same name, which is her best album, but I thought I would show this for a change. The next one after this was called Cover Plus, which is every bit as good, and then the one after that was called Smile from 1984. And it was a little bit more dated in sound, but there's still some very strong songs off it. Now I don't really know much after that album. There's bits and bobs I have, a little live performance and so forth in CD, and the odd single off the Greatest Hits Singular collection. But Haza ORourke, those 4 albums, you know, it's enough to make my top 10, and she is my number 10, and this is Sons and Lovers. Number 9 I have got a wreck of albums by, and it is Melanie. And I always tend to show this one, Gather Me, because this is the one with Brand New Key on it and Someday I'll Be a Farmer. Baby Day on it as well, which is really good. Now she is a sort of very hippie, trippy folk singer. She died last year unfortunately. But she has an awful lot of LPs. Some are really good, some are okay, and some are not so good. But the early 70s, from about 1970 up to about 74, you can't really go wrong. She does have a voice that you'll either love or hate. One minute she is singing so softly and sweetly, and the next she is screaming like a banshee. But Melanie Safka, rest in peace, wonderful artist, and she makes my number 9. Number 8 is a more recent artist, and it is Paloma Faith. And this is her debut album, Do You Want the Truth or Something Beautiful, and to me this is her best album. She's had, I think it's 5 albums already, 5 or 6. I think it's 6 now, yeah. And this here, I do think she's never better. The title track of this is my favourite song of hers. But there's some other really great tracks like Play On, Cold Stone Sober, Smoke and Mirrors. Very good album, but I also recommend that you get things like Fall to Grace and A Perfect Contradiction. Very, very good. The Architect, not a bad album either. There's one that I was never that keen on, and that was Infinite Things, which is not her last album, the one before it. But her last album, The Glorification of Sadness, is much better. So I was going to give up on her because each album was starting to get a little bit less, but she has made a comeback with The Glorification of Sadness. Now her voice is very 60s, it's very booming, she's got a really good voice, and she's also a very good actress. She's been in many TV shows. I know she was definitely on Casualty, I remember seeing her in that. But yeah, a very infectious personality as well, I have to say, Paloma Faith. So she gets my number 8. At number 7, I'll show a Greatest Hits, and yes, it's Shania Twain. I love Shania Twain. I've always loved the Shania Twain since I first heard her, and this is a good representation of her work. It's got an awful lot from her multi-platinum selling Come On Over album, which is fantastic, and her multi-platinum selling Up album, which is nearly as good, but not quite, but it's up there. But she's had, she started off really country, put it that way, with her first album, Shania Twain, which I do enjoy some of it. Second album is mixing pop with country, and then it's more pop with a little bit of country thrown in. But yeah, absolutely adore her, and it's great to have this Greatest Hits album reissued on vinyl. I remember buying this when it first came out. So Shania Twain gets my number 7. And my number 6 is another country artist, and it's Carleen Carter. And this is her Musical Shapes album from 1980. Now this is the ex-wife of Nick Lowe. I'm a huge fan of Nick Lowe, but I really do like Carleen Carter stuff as well. This album itself is basically Carleen Carter and Rockpile, and it's very good. And she does a duet with Dave Edmunds on Baby Ride Easy, which is fantastic. Now her first few albums were country pop with a lot of songs being written by contemporary artists at the time. I know Graham Parker wrote songs for Nick Lowe himself. And then after 1983 she took a sabbatical, and she came back in 1991 with a pure country album called I Fell in Love, and it's my favourite. I absolutely love it. It's one of my all-time favourite solo albums by anybody, and it is pure country. Can't get it on album, you can only get it on CD. I've shown it quite a few times in this channel, but yeah, I'll do like all the stuff from the very first album in the late 70s to the more recent stuff. I think it's around 2008 or 9 was her last album. So Caroline Carter gets my number 6. And number 5, and I'm going to show another greatest hits, and it's Kirsty MacColl. What a songwriter, what a voice, and she's absolutely wonderful. Now unfortunately she was killed in a boating accident in, I think it's 2000 or 2001, it could have been 2002 actually, but early 2000s, put it that way. But this here double album collects all her best stuff. So you get things like In New England, They Don't Know, There's a Guy Works Down the Chip Shop Swears He's Elvis, Don't Come the Cowboy with Me, Sonny Jim. She always wrote tongue in cheek. There's always sort of a little bit of a jibe in her songwriting, but absolutely wonderful. Her albums are great as well. Kite is regarded as her best. Desperate Character, her first album, is up there with me. I absolutely love it. It's real new wave and it's really good fun. And even Electric Landlady, not Ladyland, Landlady, just shows that she had a sense of humour. The one following Kite is a fantastic album with Walking Down Madison, and had Johnny Marr playing on it. So things like also He's on the Beach, Caroline, Treachery, My Affair, wonderful stuff. And as I say, this double album is well worth getting if you don't have any Kirsty MacColl, and she's my number 5. And number 4, and it's Susie Quattro, and I'll show this album. This is a more recent one. It's 2005 I believe, or 2006, and it's Back to the Drive. And this is a cracking album. It's got Back to the Drive on it, which brings back Mike Chapman as the songwriter. 15 Minutes of Fame and Duality are brilliant. Wasted Moments is great. I'll Walk Through the Fire With You, which has sort of got a dated sound, but it is excellent. And I even like Rockin' on the Free World. I don't like it that much, but that's a Neil Young song, but it's okay. But the Susie Quattro singles of the 70s and the albums were very good, especially the singles with your 48 Crash, Can the Can, Devilgate Drive, She's in Love with You, If You Can't Give Me Love, all excellent stuff. And this here, along with their recent albums, is very, very good. This is probably the pick of the bunch of the 21st century for me, Back to the Drive. So Susie Quattro gets my number 4. And number 3, we have Kate Bush. And I'm going to show this because this is the one that is often maligned, and I don't understand why. This is the Red Shoes from 1993, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant album. I think maybe it's because it's a little more basic and it's a little more accessible to some of our other albums, which suits me down to the ground. But this has hit singles Rubber Band Girl and So Is Love, The Red Shoes, and the big ballad Moments of Pleasure, all great tracks. One song in particular, Eat the Music, was a single I think in Europe, never released in the UK. I think it would have been top 5 at least if it had been released. And then Why Should I Love You, I think is a wonderful track. This is a very, very good album. It's spread over 2 LPs. I think originally on vinyl it came out as a single album, which was too long. But yeah, The Red Shoes. And if you want to start off with Kate Bush, get the whole story. Fantastic greatest hits, even though it doesn't have December Will Be Magic Again on it, which it should have had as a bonus track, but never worry. So Kate Bush is my number 3. Now the contentious one is my number 2, because for the first 5 albums this person, the name was a band, but then she went solo under the same name, and it's Toya. So I'm putting her in as solo, and this is from 1991, and this is Ophelia's Shadow, which is an absolutely wonderful atmospheric album. Did nothing in the charts. By this time she was having no success at all, but her albums as the Toya band were brilliant as well, like Blue Meaning, Anthem, and The Changeling, absolutely fantastic LPs. Sheep, Farming and Barnet, their debut was one of her best. But solo, excellent as well. Prostitute is one that I absolutely adore, and it's so weird. I was going to show it, but there's no picture of her in the cover. But this is probably up there, my favourite, with her solo albums. So Toya, still making music. The last album came out a couple of years ago, and it was very, very good. And this is Feely Shadow, so she's my number 2. Okay, my number 1, a lot of people know who my number 1 female solo artist is, and it's Tita. She's had 9 albums. Her first came out whenever she was 18, and it was in 1988. She had 2 hit singles from it, Twisted My Sobriety and Good Tradition. She hasn't really had any hits since. The LPs have charted, the early ones, but then since that, no success whatsoever, although she is quite big in Europe. Now, she does have a very deep voice, and the only artist I would sort of compare her to is Tracy Chapman, but I've always preferred Tita. I just love her voice. I love her songs. Some of her music is quite jazzy, and funny enough, I'm not a jazz fan, but my favourite album of hers is from 2005, and it's called Sentimental, and it is the jazzy album. I hated it at the start, but after a few listens I fell in love with it. This is a great album as well. This is her 3rd album, Everybody's Angels, from 1991, and it has the minor hit single Only the Ones We Love on it, and then the flop I Love the Heaven Solo. But it's a wonderful, wonderful album, and her whole catalogue is excellent. Her last album was in 2016, Closer to the People. Now that's nearly 9 years ago, so I'm hoping that another album comes out pretty soon to make it 10. So my number 1 female artist solo of all time is Tita. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. That was fun for me to do, and if you haven't seen the other one with female artists and bands, it's already been uploaded, so you can have a look at that as well. Okay, that's me for now. All the best now. Bye bye.